Hopefully by now you've watched the series of videos I prepared and you've thought about some of the tips about making money as an independent contractor. Now, the first and most important tip was to form relationships with successful CRE England lease operators to find out what they're doing to be successful. Now, if you've taken the time to do that, and I hope you have, you'll know that 80% of them have the same one-word advice for making money as an independent contractor in the lease program, and that advice is training. They're talking about training. Training is a very important revenue stream for making money in the lease program. Now let me tell you why. There's two things that come with a student. You have expenses and you have revenue. Let's talk about the expenses first. If a student can drive 2,500 miles in 1 week, which is rather straightforward and easy to do, you're going to have to pay the student $35 a day for 7 days, $245 a week paid to the student. The extra fuel charge for the 2,500 miles, assuming 6 miles per gallon at $4 a gallon for fuel, is $1,667. That's the amount of money you're going to spend on fuel when that student drives 2,500 miles. The next one is the maintenance. Now, the maintenance at 2,500 miles and 5 cents, the 5 cents a mile is the maintenance number for the lease program, but because the student is rough around the gears and the tires and the transmission, we're going to double the maintenance costs when the student's driving. So it's going to be $250 a week for maintenance costs on the truck when the student's driving it. And then CRE England, also on their leases, puts in 14 cents variable mile on every mile driven by the truck. So if the student drives 2,500 miles, there's going to be $350 extra paid on the variable miles to CRE England. So the total cost for the student for the week at 2,500 miles is going to be $2,512 per week. So that's what it costs to have him on the truck. Now let's take a look and see what kind of revenue he generates. This is an easy one. We've already talked about the fact that the truck is worth $1.35 a mile, so if the student drives 2,500 miles, that's a total of 3,370 miles. Or I'm sorry, $3,375. So that's the revenue. If we subtract the cost, we get $863 per week is what you make as a net profit for having a student on that can do 2,500 miles a week. Now, let's talk about what the student gets. The student, what happens is CRE England throws in another $35, and I think the student winds up getting around $69 a day. Times 7 is $483 per week is what the student gets for over 70 hours of work. Now, this page right here is how the whole system works and how you can make money in training. Because your question might be, how on earth can you hire somebody for over 70 hours of work for $483? That is far, far below minimum wage, no overtime, no benefits, no nothing. The reason is that there's a special exemption in the federal labor laws which classify truck drivers as unskilled laborers. So a truck driver, as far as the government is concerned, is in the same category as a migrant farm worker picking strawberries in the field. There is no overtime, no minimum wage, no nothing. So this student is actually working for you over 70 hours a week for $483. Now there's a second little trick here. As I mentioned before, the main thing that stops you from making money in the trucking business is the Qualcomm, because it shuts you down for hours of service. As a driver, you can only drive 70 hours. That's all you can do. What the student does is he allows you to break the 70-hour rule, because what's happening, he's not really a student, because he's already got a CDL in his pocket, so he's already qualified by the DOT to drive a truck in the seat without having anybody on duty in the jump seat. Now, if the student was a real student and he just had his learner's permit, there would have to be you sitting in the seat on duty in the jump seat. Because the student is not really a student as far as the DOT is concerned, because the DOT considers that person a driver, a licensed driver, he doesn't have to have anybody in the jump seat, and therefore what you can do is what I call off-duty training. You can lay in the bunk, you can sit in the seat, whatever you want, you are off the clock. So what that student is buying you is another 70 hours on the clock to drive. So even if the student isn't that talented, you can still use them as a steering wheel holder to go down the road, get your miles, and spend some time showing a few things about the truck, let them back up and go through the training books. So there's two keys to making this work. One is the fact that you've got your national labor laws. You have an exemption for truck drivers, so you don't have to pay them according to the standard. And the other exception is that CR England goes and gets that driver a real CDL driver's license before he starts training with you phase 1, because the DOT considers that a real driver, not a student. So although CR England says it's a student, the DOT says it's a driver. So anyway, between the extra 70 hours you get, the exemption to the labor laws, you are going to pay more for fuel, more for maintenance. You're going to have to pay the variable fee from CR England at 14 cents a mile. But the bottom line is a student is worth to you $863 a week. Now, what happens is that if you do not pay attention to any of the other things that I've told you so far in these videos, what's happening is you're going to get in the truck and you're not going to make any money, okay? If you don't do anything that I say but you get a student, you're going to make about $863 a week, okay? If you do what I say and you get a student, you're going to make about $2,000 a week. So that's how it works. A smart operator with a student is going to do $2,000 a week. A dumb driver with a student is going to do $863 a week. And if you're a dumb driver with no student, you're not going to make any money. So the people that are bouncing out of this program are dumb drivers without a student. That's basically it. So when you see people posting on the internet and doing all their stuff, those are dumb drivers without a student. So the point is, if you do not do any of the other videos, if you do not drive the truck properly, if you follow the GPS, if you follow CR England's fuel optimizer, if you don't check your tire pressure, if you don't do any of those things that are smart to make money, and you have a student, you're still going to make money. So there's really, this is a license to steal, and this is a very important part of making money as an independent contractor.